Immigration Maze presents Difficult American Consulates 2023-2024. 20 American consulates where visas are denied or delayed often. Weird visa rules, hard to get an appointment, extra suspicious visa officers, long wait times. Immigration Maze's lawyers are dealing with visa denials and visa delays daily. The difficult consulates list consists of 20 US consulates around the world where getting visas is difficult. Accra, Ghana; Addis Ababa, Ethiopia; Lagos, Nigeria.
There's high refusal rates in African countries, and that applies to Accra, Addis Ababa, Lagos, Nigeria, especially. And so it's very difficult to get visas in those places, but that probably has more to do with country conditions than anything else. And then also, the ability to get visa appointments, especially immigrant visa appointments, can be difficult in those places as well.
Almaty, Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan is very problematic in general. Very high refusal rates, especially for Russians that are applying in Kazakhstan. Mainly, that's country conditions issues, given the geopolitical situation in Russia. So, it's not hard to get an appointment, but it's hard to get issued. From an immigrant visa point of view and diversity visa, I would say Almaty, Kazakhstan has done a lot of what I would say problematic. They historically, last year, for example, they have denied cases by using the justification that the original DV registration was faulty. But it was only faulty because, for example, similarly, they used 214B, which is immigrant intent denial, quite liberally for all sorts of visa categories, including E2 investor visas, where people have invested hundreds of thousands of dollars, which I think they're allowed to do it, but I think that they should be more careful with how they do it and don't do it so liberally. So it's problematic in that point.
Bogotá, Colombia.
Other places where it's just difficult to get appointments for certain visa categories. For example, Bogotá, Colombia, who's actually been good at issuing tourist visas and adjudicating those, they put a stop to all E2 visa adjudications, which is problematic. And that's one of the reasons that they've gotten on this list.
Bridgetown, Barbados.
Bridgetown, Barbados, they stopped processing E2 visas for 3 years. The same thing with Bogotá. So you have certain posts that refuse to do any of a certain category. That would put them on this list. That's not appropriate, at least without transferring it. Chile was the same way for a couple of years, where they just didn't have, in their view, they didn't have the capacity to do it. In our view, people were paying and needed to get E2s issued. So that's why they'd be on the list.
Cairo, Egypt.
With Cairo, Egypt, it's very similar. A lot of administrative processing, and that's more really about country conditions and the type of population they have applying for visas.
Casablanca, Morocco.
And similarly, Casablanca, Morocco, same sort of issue. The population you have applying for those types of visas will, very likely result in a lot of administrative processing in those cases.
Ciudad Juárez, Mexico.
Ciudad Juárez is another tough one. That's mostly for immigrant visas. Non-immigrant visas have their own issues, but I think the biggest problem with Ciudad Juárez is that they really go out of their way to examine, even though you're doing an immigrant visa application, they are really honed in on denying people for misrepresentation or for smuggling, and those are permanent bars, essentially, based on their whole history, immigration history in the past. And quite often, they will also do this liberally and not really consider whether or not the misrepresentation or the smuggling at question was willful, where the person knew about it and did it on purpose. They'll just assume that's the case, which is quite problematic.
Yerevan, Armenia.
Yerevan these days has become a tough post. A lot of Russians going to Yerevan. But more importantly, Yerevan is one of the post that has been assigned for Iranian nationals going to apply for things like immigrant visas. And so you're going to see a very high rate of administrative processing there, especially for Iranian nationals.
Guangzhou, China.
China, I don't think Guangzhou is necessarily nefarious. I think we have a hidden policy of disfavoring Chinese nationals now, and are going to vet them until we are absolutely 100% certain that they're not coming in and taking technology or doing something on behalf of the communist government there, and good people are getting caught up in, and that's just the reality. It's very similar to Iranian nationals and Russian nationals right now.
Islamabad, Pakistan.
Pakistan, again, I think that one is more falls into the extreme vetting of across the board, taking a lot of overflow from maybe Iraq and some of these other posts, and just understaffed for sure, but at the same time, an incredible backlog that doesn't do justice to families who are waiting and waiting and waiting.
Johannesburg, South Africa.
I think the biggest problem with Johannesburg, especially with immigrant visas, is that it's nearly impossible to get an appointment for an immigrant visa. It's extremely difficult. It's unclear why. I don't know. Have you sued in Johannesburg? Have they provided a similar declaration?
No, they haven't fought us. I mean, it's rare. It's rare that they'll challenge us on litigation for an immigrant visa, because those are regarded as a high priority. I haven't had the pleasure of suing Johannesburg outside the diversity visa context.
I'm having a lot of difficulty getting appointments. They do it in the normal process when it goes from NVC to the post, because there's some control over how they're released from NVC. The problem is all of the appointments that got canceled over 3 years that went from NVC to post, and then they're canceled because of COVID, and now how to get those people back in the queue. That's the problem I'm dealing with right now with Johannesburg. And it's very difficult to get them back in the queue.
Manila, Philippines.
Manila, Philippines has historically been just a very difficult post for getting visas issued, but that's more of a country conditions type of issue. And a lot of people in the Philippines have ties to the United States. And so it can be very difficult to show that you don't have immigrant intent in that situation.
Mumbai, India.
India, I think, is part of the H-1B non-immigrant problem, which is you have really a interagency fight going on between State Department and USCIS and CBP about the program itself, and a lot of people are getting turned away at the embassy, or the visas are getting sent back in droves. That's if you can even get an appointment. And with the backlog for immigrant visas, a lot of times people who are Indian nationals, they just refuse to travel abroad and take the risk because they have a pending adjustment of status application and don't know what they're going to get over in India, because at the very least, they're going to be put in administrative processing and they may lose their job. And so they can't take the risk to go see their mothers and fathers. It's just a really scary embassy. And there's a lot going on. We could spend an entire hour on that one itself. So
Santiago, Chile
is another one that had stopped for a while adjudicating E2s, although I believe they're starting back up again.
Tbilisi, Georgia.
Another one I can comment on is Tbilisi, Georgia. They actually have quite good customer service. They have a dedicated email, but they have, a noticeable trend of a high rate of administrative processing. But it's not just DS 5535, it's high rate of referrals to the fraud unit. We've had some experiences with this unit or with Tbilisi on some of these cases. And I think we'd say, probably a high rate of phishing expeditions, in the sense that they don't really have anything, and and this could change very soon. This is very consular officer specific. There's one particular consular officer there that tends to want to really examine very deeply a lot of cases and puts them into administrative processing, when another consular officer would never do that. If that's something that you're interested in looking at further, please contact us, and we'd be happy to give you a consultation. And please refer to our social media links here below, and we'd be happy to talk to you.